Welcome to MasterMined, the behavioral health business podcast. We go beyond the clinical to explore what it really takes to build, grow, and lead a successful behavioral health organization. Each episode features candid, practical conversations with industry leaders, offering strategies to scale your business while staying true to your mission. From branding and marketing to leadership, culture, and compliance, we cover the tools you need to balance care and commerce with confidence. MasterMined is brought to you by Snapshot, a digital agency on a mission to serve with heart, execute with excellence, and build something bigger together. And now, welcome to MasterMined.
Hey everyone, welcome back to MasterMined. I'm joined today by my co-host Jeff Skillen, founder of Skillset Enterprises.
Hi Mark, great to be here.
Great, and my other co-host Lee Pepper, author of Never Outmatched.
Thank you for having me, Mark.
Great to have you guys here today. Today's guest is Vincent Phamvan, founder of Vyten and three-time CMO who's helped brands like Vans, Allbirds, and Calendly scale smart. He's here to talk tech, specifically how mobile apps and AI are showing up in the behavioral health space. From marketing to recovery tools, we'll cover what leaders need to know about custom apps and how they're reshaping the space. Let's dive right into it. Vincent, welcome to the show.
Hey, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
Great.
Vincent, I'm so glad you're here. I met Vincent a couple months ago at a brand builders event, and he was on stage speaking, and I was sitting there in the audience, and I said, this is the guy that I got to go talk to. And so, I do 100 other people go get in line to talk to him. I'm like, Vincent, I'm Lee Pepper, and I got a podcast, and I'm sure he was rolling his eyes going, oh my God, I've heard that a million times. But luckily I ran into him again at a book launch for Rory and Amanda Vyten. And that's when I think he realized that, no, we're the real deal. We're serious. So thank you so much for having mercy on us and coming in and speaking with us.
Podcasts are my favorite way to get to know people.
Oh, great. Well, and when we were off camera before we started, I learned that Vincent is like all good Nashvillians. He's just moved here from California recently.
Nice.
It's either California or Chicago, the two places that we pull people from.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. And I'll tell you, Vincent, what really hit home for me a couple months ago when you were on stage was your app platform. And we're going to talk about Vyten, and I'm not just doing this as a shameless plug, but I was sitting in the audience and I realized from the behavioral health perspective, and I was telling you this before, that the third largest referral channel to our programs is alumni. And alumni is not just the person who got sober or found recovery, but it's also the family unit. And I realize that what you're doing, the platform you've created, is making it so much more accessible for these smaller programs that do really amazing work, but they may have a hard time maintaining that community after their loved one graduates.
Yeah, totally. I mean, the keynote that you're talking about, I talked about like my journey and really what's led me to this point of helping people live healthier, happier lives. Across my entire career, much of it was helping the man make more money, right? In a corporate setting, the big players have an unfair advantage in the marketplace because they can make investments like nobody else. So whether you're taking a look at a large health player, a large restaurant chain, a large retailer, Walmart has a mobile app, Nordstrom's has an open mobile app, Chipotle has a mobile app, and even in the health space, Amazon launches Amazon Pharmacy, and where do they launch it? They launch it in the Amazon mobile app. This is, I believe, today one of the most coveted spaces in digital marketing. When you take a look at social media algorithms change constantly, you're going to be rolling the dice as you're posting on social because it's a pay-to-play world. We all know that now is if you want guaranteed reach, you pay to play through the ads or for the clicks. And that's what will show up even above the Google organic search results. The lock screen of somebody's phone is something that they look at constantly. The average person unlocks their phone 205 times a day.
Wow.
205 times a day, right? You have to get me on a podcast and put my phone in my pocket in order for me not to look at my phone screen. Right?
Absolutely.
Lee, I just saw you reach for your pocket.
I know. I'm like,
Well, and how stressed are you right now?
I was looking at all of them to see if they were checking their phone.
And so when you take a look at all these large companies, they don't worry as much. Yes, they spend on paid. Yes, they have great audiences on their social channels. But they also know that if they send a push notification highly personalized, segmented push notification to an individual person, they got a 92% read rate on those push notifications.
Wow.
Yep.
And that's the part that they're not going to say out loud, we use that because that's our unfair advantage. But when you take a look at the mom and pop shops, this is where things start becoming unfair. Mm-hmm. And this is where things start looking lopsided when you take a look at how do you compete when you're competing with these private equity-backed companies, these large public companies, or these venture-backed companies that are spending millions on their mobile app. And historically, when we talk about accessible mobile app development, we're still talking about hundreds of thousands in investment. You're not talking about a world where your farmer's market stand and your local restaurant and your local chiropractor has access to the same type of technology as the big players. But it is a changing consumer expectation. 88% of consumers prefer a native mobile app over a mobile website. Mm-hmm. And, there were times a decade ago where you could launch a business without a website, right? You'd take out the ad in the newspaper, you'd go sponsor community events, you go out in the community. But can you guys imagine today somebody launching a business and going, yeah, I'm not going to do the website. I just don't think I need it. It'd be unheard of. And the same thing happened on social media, right? 2009, 2010, you could launch a business and not have a Facebook page. Maybe you had a website, maybe you didn't have a website. But today, in the year that we're currently in, which I'm not going to say on a podcast so it stays evergreen, if you are launching that farmer's market stand, you have an online website. Not only do you have an online website, but you probably even make it possible for somebody to pre-order and then pick up at the farmer's market. So I love these companies like Shopify that have really leveled the playing field, but there absolutely still is this unfair advantage in the mobile app space.
Yeah. I was fascinated to have you as a guest for a lot of reasons. My background going way back is in the entertainment industry, specifically in the music industry. Mm-hmm. And what I'm hearing is a lot of parallels in terms of look how much easier it is now in terms of the democratization of content creation. Yeah. Right. So now it's like what used to be, in order to make an album that you're going to then go promote and you're going to go tour behind, it's going to cost hundreds of thousands, maybe $500,000 to do correctly. Yeah. Right. This is the same thing in terms of app building. And really getting the tools in the hands of the smaller players, and if done right, actually have the ability to, let the cream rise to the top, mm-hmm. as opposed to allowing tastemakers to make those decisions. Yes. Is that a fair analogy?
I think absolutely. I think that holds true across the music industry. I think that holds true in e-commerce, especially with players like Shopify. But I think that even holds true when you talk about traditional media in terms of television and the shift towards YouTubers. Mm-hmm. When you take a look at somebody like a Mr. Beast today, who is playing with really large budgets to be able to make these videos. But in the early days, Mr. Beast put out 200 videos before anybody noticed who Mr. Beast was. And, in the past where you have a Lady Gaga where, she spends a lot of times on small stages and did break above, a lot of this has to do with fundamentally building community. And I do think that the essence of being able to build community is what has been democratized, where in the past a lot of it was purely how much cash are you pouring in mm-hmm. to a venture.
The industry that we're addressing on this podcast, the behavioral health industry, it is still one of the few industries that has not been largely aggregated mm-hmm. like a lot of other healthcare sectors. And I think that's where this is really fascinating, because we're talking about, specifically the people that you're addressing are mom and pop or smaller operators yep. who are looking for this leverage. What's interesting to me, though, is that oftentimes when they're thinking about apps or we're advising them on apps, it's second order, third order, fourth order thinking. Mm-hmm. And I really would love your perspective in terms of how can you make that more of a pillar in your business plan yeah. as opposed to an add-on?
Yeah. One of the biggest things is, I think, for mom and pop shops is everybody wants to support a local business, right? That's, I think, abundantly clear in every single city and town across America is you want to support a small business. But at the end of the day, we're still consumers, right? And consumers also want ease of doing business and ease of transaction. And there is a level where you're willing to be hassled or do something inconvenient to be able to help and support a local business. But at some point that breaks. I was talking to a coffee shop owner about a mobile app, and in the coffee space, Starbucks gets over 30% of their revenue comes from digital ordering. And this coffee shop owner was telling me about how sometimes when he's in a rush, even though he owns a coffee shop, he will place a pastry to-go order, pick it up at Starbucks, and then go to his coffee shop. That is like the epitome of like customer ease of transaction. Right. And so at some point as a business owner, not having a mobile app, like is it going to hurt you today? I don't know, maybe. Is it going to hurt you next week? I don't know, maybe. But eventually you will see a slow decline, because what will happen is that people will be drawn towards your competitors. And up market, for all the larger players and for everybody who's well-backed, there's full penetration of mobile apps. In the medium business space, that's really where we are right now. So the question is if you're a small local business owner, do you number one, believe that mobile apps are a thing? Gosh, I hope that everybody can see that pretty clearly. And then number two, do you see them going away anytime soon? And the question is are you going to be the last in your industry to be able to adopt this when your back's up against a wall because you've seen month over month or year over year decline slowly over the course of the last 3 years? Or do you want to take this now, see something that quite honestly is not a big bet? It's not like, you're being asked to build your brick and mortar on Roblox or, on a video game or in the metaverse or something like that. But, I like tailwinds behind me.
Yeah.
And I'd rather be able to see something that is not a big risk because the adoption is there, but I'd rather have the wind in my sails.
So to follow up on that, and just to really frame this up for the audience that we've aggregated here, and this is going to sound like Sesame Street sort of thinking, but help them understand the difference between an optimized mobile website and then an app, and the difference and the opportunities that exist.
Yeah, sure. So I think everybody should have an optimized mobile website. I think it's really important. For SEO purposes, the mobile optimization plays a lot into how you're showing up on organic search. For most businesses, 60-80% north of their business is coming on mobile devices. I think of that as top of funnel. And for anybody who's not a career marketer, top of funnel is just talking about like awareness, like when people are learning about your business. A mobile app is really what helps turn followers into clients and patients and customers because of your ability to be able to nurture a relationship just more effectively than a lot of other marketing channels. Somebody has to come across your brand, whether it's a personal brand, whether it's a business brand. The repeat exposures is how you become familiar and more comfortable with a relationship. And to get somebody to come back to you 6 or 7 times, or see your content, see your advertising, see your email 6 or 7 times, when you take a look at a channel like email marketing with 30% open rates, for somebody to see 6 emails or take action on 6 emails, that means you have to send out 4 times as many emails, right? So it's 25 to 30 touches to be able to get the open rate where you see 6 emails. Social media gets even worse. If you post an Instagram story, if I take out my phone right now and I post an Instagram story of us sitting at this table, 5% of my followers will see this tomorrow. 5.
Yeah.
Right? So how many of those do I have to post to be able to get the visibility? That's where owning the relationship and having the control where you can send out the notifications yourself, and it's your app, your rules, your moderation, and it's going directly to the lock screen of somebody's phone. They're going to see it before they even unlock their phone. The tolerance there for consumers as well is because of focus modes. They might not see it right away, right? Because a lot of people have now set it up where they catch up on that stuff. And, I don't know too many people who are inbox 0 people on email anymore. But, the notifications, like you do at least at a minimum glance at them. And a lot of the times when you're trying to get somebody to change their personal behavior, you don't actually need somebody to actually tap on the notification and do something. A lot of that could just be a quick reminder of why you made this decision to change something about your life. And so this is the space, I think, in whether it's mental wellness, whether it's physical wellness, whether it's emotional wellness, is these little touch points are how you help people make a change in their life. I don't think anybody signs up for a gym without the intention of getting more fit. I don't think anybody goes and, goes on a diet because they go, I'm signing up for the work. I think the hard part is when the rubber hits the road and the work gets hard, that's where the reminders of why you started are so helpful to keep you going. And I think in terms of being able to build a behavior that gets reinforced, there's no better way than those quick touch points throughout the day. Because if you try to do that through email, you're trying to do that through social, there's just a lot of noise. And this is the way to be able to cut through the noise.
Yeah, Vincent, you've worked with some very big and impressive brands and held some big positions. I guess, what all did you learn there that helped you kind of craft the mission of Vyten? Like what kind of stuff? It's almost like you're Robin Hood. You're taking the lessons I learned from these big companies to give to these smaller companies for more success.
What's really interesting about AI is that AI is not a new thing. I mean, teams and companies that have had in-house data scientists for years before the pandemic were doing really interesting things. I mean, before the pandemic, I was a CMO at a company we were using AI to solve customer service tickets to the tune of 50 to 70%, resolution rate on these customer service tickets for some of the largest brands on the internet. And this was before ChatGPT. The thing that has changed now is that any business can do that. I mean, if you have people emailing you and customers or leads or potential clients are waiting 2 days, there's no excuse anymore. There's no excuse anymore. I emailed the Peach Truck. You guys know the Peach Truck?
Yep.
Peach Truck had an AI assistant that answered my question. They never even had to respond to me.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a Peach Truck. And so, I think the big question is, are you sitting here today wondering if AI is still going to be a thing? Is this the fad that is going to pass? And if you're thinking that today, I think you might be missing the big picture.
I mean, granted, we know Peach Truck don't play.
Not at all.
Vincent, let me ask you, and I think this is a great segue. I had a recent AI avatar that was presented to me that somebody in our space had developed. And so we started showing it around to a couple of my clients to get some feedback. But there is still such concern about and there's probably a debate about, is it automation versus real AI?
Yeah.
But there is a concern about, what is the tool going to say? Like in the example of the Peach Truck, a lot of my clients are very concerned about what's going to be said when they're asking a behavioral health question.
Yeah.
What is going to be said if they're asking about a loved one who might be suicidal,
Right.
And so how do you envision the what you are developing too? What is there to tell to behavioral health about guardrails and about safety and about HIPAA? Like, how do we make sure that whatever tool we're going to use, like, it's going to say the right thing, so to speak, to a potential patient or loved one?
There's guardrails like everything else in life. For any of us who have ever hired contractors to work for our business, there's an inherent risk with hiring a contractor. For any of us who are hiring employees and doing background checks, there's inherent risk with hiring any employees. So the guardrails are definitely there that need to be put in place with AI, like anything else. And I don't think personally that it's enough just to put a disclaimer and just go, hey, this makes mistakes, deal with it. I think the bigger piece that's even more interesting than the question that you asked is making sure that your company is not putting private data into AI and that's actually being spewed where you have confidential data that is leaking out. So I think if a company is exploring AI, one of the first things that they need to do is put together an AI policy, add it to their employee handbook, and actually communicate that out. For us, that looks like we don't put client information into public AI public LLMs, as an example. There are enterprise licenses with a lot of the AI companies where essentially in the enterprise license, the AI doesn't get trained on your data, but it's also compartmentalized. Apple's doing the most interesting work in this space, the Apple AI today. Gosh, I just wish Siri would get smarter. But Apple's choosing to take the on-device route, right? Which is AI processing on your iPhone, doesn't leave your iPhone, which is going to take longer for them to be able to develop. But that's really like the space that, from a personal standpoint, people should be looking at, is what's happening with the data. Now, in terms of the hallucinations, Sam Altman was on a podcast recently, and one of the things that he said was he was surprised that people trust AI because it hallucinates. I think the question on that is like, it hallucinates just like anything else in life that has a fault, but the AI is not going to replace our brains, right? Like if you see something that is clearly wrong, the way to be able to check the source of it is the same as I don't know that you could trust a news article on the internet today with the amount of information that's on the internet today. So, if you treat it as, a Reddit post or something similar like that, you're not going to trust a blind Reddit post that you don't know who's going to write it. Now, in the health space, obviously there's regulations and, there's scientific literature that ends up being really important. And on that same podcast with Sam Altman, I think, one of the things he said that's inconvenient for him is all of the academic literature is pay-gated. Right. So it's hard to crawl because it's pay-gated. And this was on a New York Times podcast where their response was, well, we kind of like the pay-gates.
I listened to that podcast, and it was like, when are the content aggregators going to fight back? And it's like it's happening. But anyway,
I mean, all roads lead to content licensing.
Yeah,
and fundamentally, like. Publishers deserve to get paid for their content, and just like everything else, like a market is going to be created, and in the future, the quality of the LLMs are going to be based off of who's paying the monetization and who has the best data. But make no mistake, there's already subscriptions today that there are the ChatGPT equivalent for a medical provider where it only pulls information from well-regarded literature. And so, that might not be the public ChatGPT, right? But I think in the future, there will be niches of LLMs and different models to be able to go to for different areas. And, today it's pretty broad, but in the future, if you're a natural health provider compared to if you're a pediatrician, there might be two different sources and two different LLMs that are kind of trusted there.
One thing I want to say, and I think in the beginning, we have to, like in Jeff and Mark and I's world, we train a lot of folks that are answering that first phone call.
Yep.
And just like we have to train that staff, you're going to have to train your agent, your AI
absolutely.
agent. And so the mistakes that the AI agent can make, your staff could be making too.
Yeah.
So.
And that's probably the number one thing that as people jump into AI, they'll make the prompt or they'll try to use the agent to respond to the customer, and they'll see the first response and it's just like, well, that response wasn't very good. The answer to that is it gets good as you feed in the human work that you've done in the past. Meaning, if I use a simple example, you ask something to write a blog post, it's going to write a pretty generic, pretty robotic blog post. If you want it to sound like then you got to feed it in the 200 articles that you actually wrote. And after you do that, it's pretty darn good at doing 201.
Excellent.
Vincent, undertaking a mobile app is going to be a lift for any organization. I guess I've got kind of a two-part question. One is, like, how many times do you go in and work with clients where you go, here's an off-the-shelf application that could accomplish, let's say, 90% of what you're looking for, versus like we need to build this from scratch. And then the second part would be, like, just thinking about the investment. Do you ever work with clients, like maybe in this space or other space, where you get 3 or 4 of them together and they like co-op an application that could work, 90% for all of them, and they can customize it a little bit?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I think to answer that question in terms of how we do it, you have to have an understanding of how the industry works. the industry essentially does custom work billed by the hour, and how much you pay per hour depends on where the location of the talent is, the qualification of the talent, and just the type of work that they do. But historically, I mentioned earlier, building a mobile app, minimum like $30K if it's like a decent mobile app, and that's working with an offshore team a lot of the times. But like if you want one of those apps that like looks professional, like you're really looking closer to the $50K to $150K like range. And then there's ongoing maintenance and just getting it compliant to keep up with like all of Apple and Google's changing policies. When I took a look at that, I just said, gosh, that's broken.
Yeah.
Right, that's broken. And I think part of the challenge today is most small, medium business owners don't even think that an app is even achievable. So they don't even look at doing it because, number one, it's a super intimidating technical thing. And then number two, they just think, oh, that's for the big players, right? So what we did is we've built close to 300 different components that we kind of treat as Lego blocks for building a mobile app. So every mobile app that we build has a home screen. Every mobile app we do has a settings screen. Simple features like authentication. A company shouldn't have to build that type of stuff from scratch. And because we work specifically in the health and wellness space, we end up building a lot of the same components. So in terms of to your question of do 4 business owners come together and they kind of collab and split the cost, that's essentially what we've done with our mobile app building. And that having those pre-built components allows us to actually assemble and configure an app in a week. So all of our projects, we start them on a Monday. By Wednesday, you're looking at every single screen, not a wireframe, like every single screen of your app. You give us feedback on Wednesday. We make the changes on Thursday. We're submitting it to Apple and Google on Friday. We've gotten really, really good at doing that because the other big piece is when you embark on a project like this, there's the cost and the financial investment like everything else. But a lot of the times in business, like the biggest investment that you take is mind share and time, right? Like this can't be a thing that takes 6 to 9 months, which actually is the industry average on how long it takes to build a mobile app. It's got to be done quickly and in an affordable way, but the biggest thing is like it can't be a distraction from the rest of the business to be able to do it. So today, some of the outcomes that we're seeing, consumers on average, they'll open up a mobile app 2.5 times as often as they will visit a website. Back in the day, like in the AOL days, remember when like Yahoo was a directory and we used to bookmark websites? Any of you still bookmark websites today?
No.
Nobody.
No.
Nobody. So like if you could see a billboard, you could hear a radio ad, you could visit a website, but if you don't remember the name of that company, it's really hard to get back there. The mobile app, when somebody downloads your app and they have that app icon on your phone, that's like the refrigerator magnet.
Yeah.
Right? You walk by it every single day. You don't need to know the name of the company. You just need to know it's a yellow icon and the shape and which screen it's on your phone. So it makes it a lot easier to be able to get back there. And then that's on top of the push notifications that you can send to somebody as well. So between the push notifications to get 92% read rate and that mobile app icon with a little red circle when you get a push notification on that app icon, that's where it's a lot easier to get somebody back into your world, but allowing you to be able to stay top of mind as you're nurturing relationships.
We're all consumers in this regard. So it's, I think everybody at the table uses the Starbucks app. Everybody at the table probably uses the Chipotle app.
Yeah.
How good is, so to go from one of those, $1 million development projects to then comparing to, I'm also seeing a therapist at an IOP and they also have an app.
Yeah.
What's the quality differential? In terms of like, how competitive is it now in terms of standing up to the mobile experience they're used to on one platform and then another?
I think just like on everything else, whether you're taking a look at, WordPress, Shopify, all of that, there are ugly WordPress sites and there are good-looking WordPress sites. And, like every other technology, a lot of that is the implementation of your brand. We do custom fonts, we do full branding. So the nice thing is like it looks like your app. But I think the other big piece that we're doing for our clients is these are not cookie-cutter apps. So we've seen that there's players across all industries, whether it's an electronic medical record system, whether it's a restaurant ordering system, or whether it's the appointment booking tool that a local chiropractor uses. When you purchase that app, you get exactly what everybody else has. Maybe you could change a button color, maybe you can change out photos, but you get the exact same features. And the reality is that number one, content is everything today. That's why we're even spending time here recording a podcast. There are restaurants now with podcasts, which is wild, and YouTube shows. But what those restaurant ordering platforms do is one thing really, really well: delivery and takeout. But it doesn't allow them to be able to have recipes. It doesn't allow them to be able to integrate with their YouTube channel. It doesn't allow them to be able to sell, the steak rub and the T-shirts and the hats and the everything else that is a big part of their business. And it doesn't always allow them to be able to express like the full brand in the same way that it comes to life on their website. But a consumer shouldn't be surprised when they go to your website and they download your mobile app. Like, it shouldn't look like two different things.
The Starbucks app, we've mentioned it a couple of times, and it is, my wife and daughter and I, we share it, and it is amazing how much they can suck out of your account. And it's like incredible in that, like, I can go up there and I never have to worry about reloading it because it just auto reloads.
Yeah.
I guess what have you seen in this space, in the health and wellness, behavioral health space? Like, what's been a success story that you've maybe seen through an app that you go, maybe not exactly at the Starbucks level, but just something that's been really powerful and successful?
So an app, I think, does three things. The number one thing is that the levels of engagement are significantly higher, right? So if you want to share a resource, if you want a daily reminder, if you want somebody to take a daily habit, the mobile app is a great way of being able to stay top of mind, where historically the ways of being able to do that would be like more expensive services, meaning like I'd imagine, if you're looking for a healthcare provider, there are ones that will text you every single day, but that's a much different price point than somebody who doesn't give text message access or phone call access. And the reality of it today is that like health outcomes shouldn't be based on how much you can afford. Like, that's just fundamentally not fair. And so what I love is that the AI and the mobile apps allows you to be able to democratize this, where you can go out as a business owner and say, hey, somebody who can't afford the best of everything, like, how do I not sacrifice on my level of care? And how do I give them the experience that is really similar to the experience that's done all manually that exists in the premium market across all industries? And that's the biggest thing that I think the AI is unlocking right now, is that you can scale unscalable things in a way like no other. But at a high level, the biggest things that we're seeing is somebody who downloads a mobile app like pretty early in the journey, 4 times more likely to become a repeat client. Now, there's some industries where that's a good thing. Some industries, that's a bad thing. But, I think the big piece is they don't go out shopping for alternatives as much because they feel a deeper relationship, or they're being rewarded with loyalty, or they're being rewarded with reviews, in writing reviews or referrals. And, the second piece is that the way that referrals happens, old school, remember those like website forms where I like, Mark, I'd have to look up your email address, and then I have to go to a website, and I'd have to type in your email address, and then I have to type in your name, and then I have to type the note, and then I have to hit send.
Yeah.
That's a lot of friction, right? That's a lot different than I'm in a mobile app, I tap a button, it pre-populates a text message,
Right.
and I just type in Mark and hit send.
Right.
That's the way that stuff gets shared in real life, is in text messages. And so, whether you're hosting an event, whether you're sharing a referral code, whether you're sharing a resource, it shouldn't take somebody having to cut and paste an email address or cut and paste a phone number to be able to share something. And we opened up at the beginning of this episode talking about ease of use, like how easy it is to do business with your business. Referrals are the exact same way. If you're delivering quality care, like, people want to share. Now the question is how easy do you make it to actually share? And how easy do you make it to incentivize it? And the incentivize doesn't always have to be a financial incentive, but, are you saying thank you as a business owner for those referrals?
You know, one of the things, Vincent, I don't want to put you too much on the spot, but you know what's fascinating in behavioral health is that we kind of have our audience already defined.
Yeah.
You know, the family and the patient have gone through the journey.
Yeah.
They're now getting ready to step down into a different level of care. We have an opportunity to say, hey, now we want you to download our app. It's not like we're having to run ads to get people. Like, we've got kind of a captured audience.
Yep.
So what are you mentioned you had a few hundred kind of things that were already kind of pre-built, you know, without having to quote you completely, but what are some of the things that you potentially could envision in behavioral health, building an app to do certain things, like you mentioned, like maybe a calendar or check-ins?
Yeah.
Are there some other interesting tools that some of the folks that own these centers could think about? Wow, if I had an app and I could stay sticky with my families, like what are some of the things that we're not thinking about that we could?
And I'm trying to get them to think bigger than just alumni.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, I mean, there's a bigger opportunity, right?
Yeah, because the way that I think, you know, and Jeff, I think follows my lead on this too, that, you know, alumni for us is not just the one patient, it's that extended family. So when you build an alumni program and you have an alumni referral channel, it's not just the one, it's the maybe 10 or 20 family members that are now
and the providers that support them and their care team.
Sure.
It's like for every person that goes through a continuum, there was anywhere between 5 and 30 people that have an investment in their outcome.
Yeah, I mean, it's not reinventing the wheel, right? It's taking the processes and the things that are in the business today that already work and taking a look at, is there a way to be able to simplify that? Is there a way to be able to have a digital version of that? The industries that have the highest mobile app adoption and the highest outcomes are actually the ones where you have a face-to-face in-person experience that is enhanced digitally and then continues after that in-person experience ends. So like an example is, you know, the conference that you and I were at. You know, when you have an in-person experience, the number one thing is you can drive 100% mobile app adoption because it could just be part of the process, right? So as you're onboarding, as you're getting introduced, the mobile app just becomes part of the experience. Anything that anybody is ever handing out in a binder now, you don't need a binder anymore, right? Like, have this be the digital version of that, because on a binder you can't play a video, on a binder you can't listen to an audio file. And so this gives you a much richer multimedia way to be able to deliver content that previously was a worksheet or a binder. And so we have a nonprofit that we work with, Foundation for Choice, where they help high school students get into college, underserved high school students get into college. And every single week there are, you meet up with your mentor and there's a worksheet that you work through, and we help them digitize all of that. So now, you know, they're not going through all of these worksheets trying to see which ones got done, which ones didn't get done, which, you know, do we need to follow up with so-and-so. Like, all of that is just digital and lives in their app now. But as you go through their program, because the app is such a part that's like deeply built into the program, you don't have to then change the behavior after you transition back into another phase of life, because you built the behavior during the 20 to 30 day journey already. And at that point, you know, the fact that you're getting 2 push notifications a day is not something new. It's just a continuation of what you were already doing. And that's how you drive lasting outcomes in being able to sustain behavioral change.
See, I love you saying that, because, you know, one of my clients that Jeff and Mark also know well, but Ward Blanchard, who used to work at Foundations, very well known, runs an outpatient program in Charlotte, North Carolina. But that's one of the struggles that I see. They have an amazing alumni program called Change Agents. But how are we communicating with our change agents? Email.
Yeah.
Terrible adoption.
Right.
And then I think about the great events they do, and it's like, what do we have to promote the events? Oh, social.
Yeah.
Terrible. Email. Terrible. But I could see, like, wow, if we were to somehow integrate them into this app, and it could be such a richer experience. Whereas right now, they do all the hard work, but it's piecemeal.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe the mobile app platform is what kind of starts to unify. They're already doing the hard work. They just don't have that piece that's really connecting.
Yeah, I mean, how cool would it be? I mean, as you're spending this time away from those that you love, if you're getting digital notes from them, if you're getting voice memos from them, and, you know, look, I think there's a lost art in letter writing, and the letter writing is great.
I completely agree with that.
But like you can't force the medium. We got to allow people to be able to communicate and interact in the channels that are natural for them and the channels that they want to. And quite frankly, sometimes a voice memo can strike differently because you can hear the tone and the emotion and the way that somebody is speaking that I'm not a good enough writer to be able to communicate that way.
And I'm sorry, Jeff, to cut it.
No.
When somebody wants to, in as an example, use your platform, is it a best practice for them to have a subject matter expert, a SME, or a champion within their organization? How technical do they have to be if they want to have this, work with like Vyten?
Yeah, I mean, our bread and butter is we work with healthcare providers, and you don't get into healthcare to learn technology or marketing, right? So I would say 95% of our clients don't have a CTO, don't even have a fractional, part-time, head of technology. For the most part, they buy off-the-shelf tools that, you go online, you put your credit card in, you start a free trial, and that's the technology experience that they have. Our tagline is apps made simple because we take on all of the heavy lifting. Anything that requires, work with Apple and Google, we essentially do. So, just like you have a CPA so that you don't have to talk to the IRS, we essentially operate as that middle person with Apple and Google and all of their changing policies and technical requirements. But, you don't have to you don't have to have an understanding of that to be able to launch the app. And updating content in your app is as simple as posting a blog post online, sending a push notification no harder than sending a text message. You type the message, you schedule out when you want it to go out, and then you hit send, and it goes out.
I mean, just following up on Lee's question, I mean, I think anybody that's listening to this conversation, first of all, I think probably there's equal parts anxiety and opportunity here. Part of it, and I think this is where Lee was going with the question, is do they need to reach out to someone like you and have already thought about all these things, have already sort of whiteboarded what they want to do, and then you build it? Or is this more of a collaborative process? And then what is the time frame around something like that?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. When you take a look across any industry, we might have two players that are in different cities. Their apps are not going to look exactly the same because no two businesses, no two organizations, no two nonprofits look exactly the same, right? There's going to be things that are going to be important to one that are not important to the other. There's going to be preferences on SOPs and how things are done. And so we have a general understanding and a starting point. And a lot of that will use our pre-built components. We always recommend start small, go fast, start small. Much better to be able to get something out in the hands of people actually using it and then take the feedback from them and continue to refine. So it's not one and done. You should think of it like everything else as an iterative process. And the second part is that we grow with these companies as well. So as they switch out CRMs, as they switch out different tools, we act as a container to be able to house those tools, but it's pretty easy to be able to swap out one integration for another integration, because the last thing that you want to do is to get thousands of people downloading this app and then you outgrow a tool or a system and then you lose everything that you had built and you have to start all over. The second thing is that we act in a consultative manner to be able to help everybody do this. And so because mom and pop is our specialty, there's no experience needed or required up front. We know that this can be a daunting thing, and that's why we've made it our mission to understand this one thing really, really well and to try to streamline it and actually be able to put out that we make it simple and we do it in a week.
I mean, wait a second, you just said you do it in a week? Okay.
I think the audience would be shocked.
Well, no, that's why I had to stop for a second. I was like, a week? Yeah. Okay. I mean, you made a very compelling case in terms of bypassing the clutter in terms of communicating, and then also cultivating that one-to-one relationship. There's probably not another vehicle or medium that delivers that, quite frankly. I can't think of it.
Yeah, not today. I mean, text message is close, but
it doesn't have the feel, right?
You have to hit the preview button before you see a photo. I think the bigger piece is like, I'm not sure I want brands in my text message. Like text message is where my friends and family are. So, as a brand, it's almost like intrusive to be able to step into that. I mean, I want my text message to be two things: my 6-digit codes and my friends and family, right?
Accurate.
And so, I think push notifications end up being the natural place where you're respecting kind of the hierarchy of where to be, but you do have this really rich channel that allows you to be able to nurture relationships.
So let me just restate this for the people that are listening. So I mean, to go from idea to the Google store or the app marketplace, a week.
Yeah, we built them in a week. And we've gotten really good at doing that because we've done this one thing so many times over and over and over again. And the second part is because we focus on health-focused online and brick-and-mortar health, wellness-focused businesses, that it's not like working with a company that has no experience in the space. Mm-hmm. Like we're also seeing the trends across the space. And a big advantage of working with us is that we can communicate those trends. And launching a mobile app might get you caught up with the industry, but it's not our goal to get everybody caught up. It's our goal to help you start leading the pack, so that you can carve the new trails and be able to roll out really innovative things, not for the sake of rolling out the shiny token, but in service of your customers, in service of your patients, in service of your clients, because they came to you because they wanted to make a change in their life. Right now, AI is the unfair advantage that you can use to be able to compete on a different level and be able to provide an experience like no other. Yes, there's guardrails with it and there's risks with it like everything else, but you can always start on back-end processes. You can always have a human checkpoint where, Lee, to your question earlier, like if I'm not comfortable with the message that AI might generate, of course I'm not going to send that out. Mm-hmm. But gosh, how much time is it going to save if that's already drafted? Mm-hmm. And I have the person that I trust today reading that and going, yep, that's good, send. Nope, this one we want to rewrite this, and that actually signals to the AI what it should be next time. The world's shifting with AI, and I think there's a big question of, where along the stages of evolution do you see it and you either jump on a wave and it benefits you, or do you do it really late where at that point it's to try to keep up?
Yeah. We may be out of order just a little bit, but
that's because you're no.
Well, it's like normally podcasts might ask this question a lot earlier. No, this is not in terms of adoption. This is more a question of like, Vincent, your evolution. I'm fascinated because beyond your technical prowess and skill and what you're bringing to this industry, I want to understand, what is it about your personal journey that makes you want to focus on this space? What's the fire in your belly to really want to get involved in the health and wellness space?
My first daughter was born in 2019, right before the pandemic. My wife's a functional nurse practitioner. During the pandemic, she was working the Meharry drive-through COVID test station. And so that year I had a chance and was lucky enough to be able to spend 16 weeks at home with Lily, which wouldn't have happened at any other time, right? The 16 weeks were because the daycare was closed because somebody in the classroom got COVID. Mm-hmm. But, that was really like this eye-opening moment where you step back and you say, like, what is my personal mission? And where do you go out, and what's important to you, and where do you serve? And the large businesses will always make more money year over year. They'll always deliver year over year growth, whether you're a part of it or not. And I think the big thing there in large companies as well is, if you're not going to do the job, somebody else will, right? We all think that like we deliver this distinct value, but when you go out and you take a look at local communities, like these are the people that we're spending our time with. These are the communities that we're actually living with, and these end up being the friends and family that I think at the end of life you're going to look back and you're going to say, was it the extra zero in the bank account, or was it the relationships with these people. I think that combined with Main Street businesses, that in no other space do you have the shift that has occurred towards the large PE-backed roll-ups and the large companies coming into communities. And, I think that we have to look at that as a society. And, there's kind of two sides to every single, scenario in every local community. You all have been to a Buc-ee's, I assume?
Of course.
Right? Like, Buc-ee's, like, I love it. I don't understand it. You park the Tesla there, it charges in like 6 minutes. I don't know how much juice is going into this supercharger that makes it different than everywhere else. It's not even fair. It takes 6 minutes to walk to the front door.
Yeah.
And so, you make it to the front door, now you're getting charged overage fees because your car is fully charged and it's just sitting there on the charger. But, there's a community over in the West right now where a Buc-ee's is coming to the community and people don't want it.
They're fighting it. Yeah.
They're fighting.
Really?
They're fighting it.
You mean out west?
Yeah.
Western U.S.
Western U.S.
I've been following that. Yeah.
Like people are fighting it. And so, I don't think it's good to automatically take a look at like bigger is always better. Like you got to look at what's right in each community for the community and the values of the community. But that's where I've taken a look at this. And our mission, we want to help people live healthier, happier lives. And we want to do that by taking what we do well, which is technology, and helping the little guy compete with the big guy or gal. And we want to do that really, really well. Today, from the seat that I'm sitting in, I think mobile apps is that unfair advantage, which is why we do mobile apps. I think that's rapidly shifting to AI. I think eventually mobile apps won't be a thing at some point. I don't know. I think the jury's still out on what we're going to have. Is it a contact lens that replaces it? Is it, the Ray-Bans are actually pretty cool from Meta. They overheat, which I don't know. Sunglasses that overheat when you're outside for an hour is kind of a problem. But it's cool technology in terms of where it's going. Like we want to help the mom and pop shops be there when it goes there versus being left behind, where it becomes impossible to compete on Main Street.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Vincent, as an agency owner, I'm so glad that we've had you on the show to get to know you and Vyten a little bit better. And a lot of the stuff, that I took away, one is, that these mobile apps don't have to cost the millions of dollars they used to.
Yeah.
They don't have to take the years or even 6 to 10 months that they used to. They can be very quick, very affordable, and that allows us time to iterate with your team to actually build out the right product that we're really looking for. And so I think from my standpoint, it's refreshing. I'm sure from our audience, very refreshing. I guess, is there anything today that, we've talked about a ton, is there anything that maybe we missed that you think would be valuable for the audience?
The secret in the future, whether it's marketing or whether it's business, it's all in data. Everything is going to come down to the data. The businesses that are spending time collecting first-party data, so we'll talk a little bit without getting too deep into it. First-party data is data that you collect, data that sits in your CRM. Third-party data is when you're relying on another company. So an example of that is when you have YouTube subscribers or Instagram followers, you're reliant on a third party, right? First-party data is going to be king because first-party data is what is going to allow you to be able to safely and securely train AI to be able to replicate what you're already doing well today and make it possible to be able to do it instantly and at scale. And these are the types of efficiencies, but also improvements in the business that, are already rolling out to medium-sized companies. And so we will see over time more companies making it easier to do business with them, easier to be able to interact with them 24/7, where it could be the middle of the night and I send an email to the peach truck because that's what's top of mind, but they don't need to have a person sitting there answering that because they're able to get me the response instantly that normally would have come the next day or the day after that. And so all of this is going to be trained on data. And so even for the company that is apprehensive about implementing AI or implementing things that are client-facing, customer-facing, patient-facing today, if you believe that in some point in the future that maybe you want to see how somebody else is doing it first, and you want to let all your competitors like figure out the hiccups, and then you'll come in afterwards and take the learnings and roll it out at the pace that you're comfortable with, it's not too late just to start collecting the data today and housing the data today, because you don't have to fully roll everything out, but you will have when you do decide that it is the time and the way and the place to do it, it's all going to be based off of data. And so whether that's recording phone calls that happen today, whether it's having digital note takers in an in-person setting. So I go to my primary care providers at Vanderbilt, and during my last few visits, he puts a little recorder on the table and goes, "Hey, would you be comfortable with me recording this?" And for a patient, it's like, yeah, I would much rather have you engaged in the conversation than focusing on trying to chart and take every single note. But having the year worth of data and interactions is what then allows, if Vanderbilt wanted to take that data and go, hey, the new primary care provider just started, let's get them onboarded. And what a faster way to do that than by actually taking all of the knowledge and all of the transcripts and everything from their best provider and having the new provider trained off of what the best provider does.
Wow.
That insight, first of all, it seems so obvious and yet elusive when you think about it, because those third-party providers of data that people are relying upon, those policies can change like that.
Yeah.
And then to what extent is that information filtered? To what extent is that information shared elsewhere?
Yeah.
And again, it's like, as an entrepreneur or a business owner, control what you can control.
Yeah.
And then capture what you can capture.
Yeah.
To me, that's fantastic insight, and I think super helpful.
Yeah, Vincent, I think, we've covered a ton, and I think this could be a 3-hour episode. Like, I feel like I could talk to you all day long about this, and I think it'd be great to potentially build something together in this space that we have you back on and we have you talk about in the future. So I hope you're open to that. And, I just want to say thank you to Jeff and Lee. You guys appreciate all your insights in this space as well. So, and that's a wrap for today's episode. A huge thanks to Vincent for showing us what's possible in today's tech. From me and the entire MasterMined team, thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review so that we can bring you the best insights. Let us know your thoughts on the intersection of application development and behavioral health. Until next time, MasterMined signing off.
That wraps up this episode of MasterMined. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, MasterMined is not just a podcast, it's a community. So don't forget to comment, subscribe, and review us. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content that's relevant and relatable. Thanks again to our sponsor, Snapshot, a digital media marketing agency. And thank you for joining us on MasterMined, your behavioral health playbook.